This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood frozen in the alley behind No. The Chicago night air thick with the smell of rain and garbage. My wheelchair creaking under me as I stared at Sam, my father, crumpled against the brick wall, his face bloodied, his cheap suit torn. Donnie, a hulking figure in a leather coat, loomed over him, his fist raised, his voice a low growl that sent chills down my spine. "Time's up, Sam," he said, cracking his knuckles, his dark eyes glinting with menace. "Where's my money?" Sam's hands shot up, trembling, his voice a desperate whine as he begged, "Just give me more time, please, Donnie, don't do this." I'd followed him out here after dinner, suspicion gnawing at me, and now the truth hit like a freight train. He wasn't just a deadbeat dad, he was a dead man walking, and he'd dragged me into his mess. I'm Walt, 31 years old, a former basketball prodigy turned multimillionaire, running Rise Again, a company that lifts families out of the despair I once knew. I've got close-cropped black hair, a scar slicing across my left cheek from the crash that stole my legs at 16, and a resolve forged in the fire of abandonment. Back then, I was a kid with hoop dreams, training with Sam every dawn, until that car accident left me paralyzed and him running for the hills. I built my life back from scratch, me and Mom, Linda against the world, and now, here he was, 15 years later, bleeding in an alley, begging for a lifeline he didn't deserve. "Please," Sam's voice cracked, his eyes darting to me, wide with panic as he spotted me in the shadows. "Walt, son, help me. Tell him I'm good for it." His plea was a gut punch, his blood-streaked face a twisted mirror of the man who'd once pushed me to be great, and I felt a surge of rage, disgust, and something softer, pity maybe, twisting inside me. "Stay out of this," Donnie snapped, turning his head just enough to fix me with a cold stare, his meaty hand still gripping Sam's collar. "This ain't your fight, rich boy. Roll on out of here." His tone was mocking, but there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes, like he knew who I was, and it made my stomach churn. The alley's damp air clung to my skin, the faint drizzle streaking the brick walls, and the distant hum of Chicago traffic felt like a lifeline just out of reach. Sam whimpered under Donnie's grip, his bloodied face twisted in panic, his hands clawing at the pavement, and I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, rage at his betrayal, disgust at his weakness, and a nagging pull of something I couldn't name, something that kept me rooted there despite every instinct screaming to leave. "He's my father," I said again, my voice low but firm as I rolled my wheelchair closer, the gravel crunching under the tires, my hands steady on the rims despite the tremor running through me. I deserve to know what mess he's dragged me into. My chest tightened, a mix of defiance and dread, the weight of 15 years pressing down as I faced Donnie's hulking frame, his leather coat gleaming wet in the dim streetlight. Donnie's laugh was a harsh bark, echoing off the alley walls as he loosened his hold on Sam, letting him slump to his knees with a groan. "Deserve?" he said, wiping his hands on his coat, his dark eyes narrowing as he stepped toward me, his boots thudding on the ground. "You think this is about family honor, huh? Your old man owes me 50 grand, borrowed it for some half-assed business that tanked. Deadline was last week, and he's been dodging me, crying about his loaded son bailing him out. That's you, I'm guessing?" He smirked, his gold tooth glinting, and I felt a flush of anger crawl up my neck, my fists clenching on the armrests. "Walt, please," Sam rasped, his voice a desperate wheeze as he crawled toward me, his torn suit dragging through a puddle, his hands shaking. "I swear I'll pay him. Just a little help, son. It's pocket change to you. I came to fix things. I'm sorry." His words were a frantic plea, his blood-streaked face a pitiful mask, and I felt that old wound tear wider, the night he abandoned us replaying in sharp, jagged flashes, his cold words, Mom's sobs, the hospital bill that broke us. "Fix things?" I said, my voice rising, raw with fury as I leaned forward, my eyes boring into his. "You left us, Sam. Left me paralyzed in that bed, told Mom I was a burden, walked out when we needed you most. You don't get to waltz back now and beg for my money." My throat burned, my breath coming fast, and I slammed a hand on the armrest, the metal rattling under my palm. Before Donnie could respond, a new voice cut through the tension, a woman's, sharp and familiar, echoing from the alley's mouth. "Walt, what the hell's going on?" Tasha strode in, her braids swinging, her trench coat flapping as she approached, her brown eyes wide with alarm. "She's my best friend, my coup at Rise Again, the one who'd warned me about Sam's shady past just hours ago in my office. I saw you roll out after dinner," Then I heard shouting. "Who's this clown?" She jerked her chin at Donnie, her stance defiant, her hand hovering near her phone like she was ready to call for backup. "Tasha, stay back," I said, my voice tight as I waved her off, my heart pounding harder now, worry for her mixing with my anger. "This is Donnie. He's got Sam in debt. It's under control." I didn't want her here, not in this mess, but her presence steadied me, her fierce loyalty a rock I could lean on. "Under control?" Donnie said, chuckling darkly as he crossed his arms, his bulk casting a shadow over me. "Cute. Your boy's got a savior complex, lady. Too bad Sam's a lost cause. 50 grand plus interest. 60 now. You paying or do I finish him?" He cracked his knuckles again, his grin widening, and Sam whimpered, his hands clutching at my chair, his desperation a cloying weight. "Please, Walt," Sam begged, his voice breaking as he grabbed my leg, useless as it was, his fingers digging in. "I know I screwed up. I was scared, stupid, but I'm your dad. You can't let him kill me." His tears mixed with the blood on his face, and I felt a sick twist in my gut, pity warring with the rage that kept me upright. "Get off me," I said, shoving his hand away, my voice cold as I rolled back, putting space between us. "You stopped being my dad the night you walked out. I owe you nothing." My chest ached, the words cutting deeper than I expected, and I glanced at Tasha, her eyes fierce, nodding like she knew I was right. The alley's shadows shifted, and another figure emerged. Vinny, Donnie's muscle, a wiry guy with a shaved head and a scar across his throat, his silence more menacing than Donnie's bluster. He leaned against the wall, twirling a knife in his hand, his gray eyes fixed on Sam like a predator sizing up prey. "Boss, we waiting on this guy's charity, or we done?" he said, his voice a low rasp, and I felt a chill, the stakes snapping into sharp focus. "Hold up, Vin," Donnie said, raising a hand, his gaze shifting between me and Sam, calculating. "Let's hear it, rich boy. You covering his tab, or do I let Vinny have some fun?" He smirked, and Vinny flipped the knife, catching it mid-air, the blade flashing in the dim light. "Walt, don't," Tasha said, stepping closer, her voice urgent as she grabbed my shoulder, her fingers digging in. "He's playing you. Sam's a leech, and this guy's bad news. Walk away, now." Her eyes darted to Vinny, then back to me, her worry palpable, and I felt a stab of guilt for dragging her into this. "I'm not paying," I said, my voice steady, my decision crystallizing as I met Donnie's stare. "He's on his own. Do what you want with him." My heart thudded, a mix of relief and regret washing over me, and Sam's wail cut through the air, shrill and broken. "No, Walt, please," he cried, lunging for me again, but Vinny moved fast, yanking him back by the collar, pinning him to the wall with a thud. "I'm sorry. I'll change. Don't leave me." His voice cracked, tears streaming, and I turned my chair, the wheels scraping as I rolled toward Tasha, my resolve hardening. "You left us first," I said, my voice low, final, my back to him as I headed for the street. "Deal with it." Tasha fell in step beside me, her hand on my shoulder, her silence a comfort as Sam's pleas faded into the night, drowned by the sound of Vinny's fist meeting flesh. Tasha's hand tightened on my shoulder as we rolled out of the alley, the sound of Sam's pleas. "Walt, don't leave me," fading into the wet Chicago night, replaced by the dull thud of Vinny's fist against flesh and Donnie's low chuckle. My chest felt heavy, a tangled mess of relief, guilt, and a cold satisfaction I couldn't quite name, the rain streaking my face like tears I refused to shed. "You okay?" Tasha said, her voice soft but edged with worry as she kept pace beside me, her trench coat flapping in the breeze, her eyes scanning my face for cracks I wouldn't let show. "Yeah," I said, my voice rough as I gripped the wheels, pushing harder against the gravel, the ache in my arms a welcome distraction. Had to be done. He's not my problem anymore. My words felt true, solid, but there was a tremor beneath them, a flicker of the scared 16-year-old kid I'd buried long ago, and I shoved it down, focusing on the street ahead, the neon lights of No glowing in the distance. "Damn right he's not," she said, her tone fierce as she pulled her phone out, her fingers flying across the screen. "I'm texting Linda. She needs to know you're done with him. No more surprises." Her loyalty steadied me, a rock in the storm, and I nodded, grateful for her, for the life I'd built without him. "Let me take you back. Hours earlier, before the alley, before Donnie's fists, I'd sat across from Sam at No, the restaurant's polished wood and soft jazz, a stark contrast to the tension crackling between us. Mom was there, her gray eyes wary, her hands clasped tight in her lap, and Sam had raised his glass, his smile oily. To second chances, he'd said, and I'd felt my stomach twist, suspicion coiling like a snake. I've been working hard, he'd gone on. Not like you, son, selling companies for millions, but I've had my wins. Want to reconnect, make things right. His words were smooth, rehearsed, and I'd leaned forward, my voice low. Reconnect? I'd said, my fingers tapping the table, my anger simmering. You left us, Sam, left me in that hospital bed, paralyzed, told Mom I was a burden. We went bankrupt, lost everything. You don't get to waltz back now. My chest had burned, the memory of that night sharp. Sam at the door, his gym bag slung over his shoulder, his voice cold. I'm not getting those hours back, Linda. All that training for nothing. He's a crippled kid now, a burden. I've got dreams. Mom's sobs had echoed, please, Sam, don't leave us. But he'd walked out, leaving us to drown. I screwed up, he'd said at dinner, his hands raised, his eyes pleading. I was selfish, stupid, I'm sorry. But look at you now. Maybe me leaving pushed you to this. He gestured around, the chandelier glinting, and I'd slammed my glass down, the wine sloshing. Pushed me? I'd snapped, my voice rising, raw. I built Rise again because of Mom, because we begged on streets after you bailed. You don't get credit. Mom had touched my arm, her voice calm. Let him talk, Walt. Closure. So I'd invited him to stay, 8:30, my gut screaming he was after something. Back in the present, Tasha and I reached my car, the sleek black SUV parked under a street lamp, its ramp already down. He's a leech, she said, helping me transfer from the chair, her hands steady on my shoulders. Always knew it, my digging proved it. His company, a shell, Walt, owes Donnie 60 grand now, and that mobster's not playing. You did the right thing. Her words settled me, and I nodded, climbing in, the engine humming to life as we drove off. Hours before in my office, Tasha had warned me, her laptop glowing with reports. Sam's broke. Owes a guy named Donnie, mafia type. He's here for your money, Walt. Bet on it. I'd stared out at the skyline, my scar itching, my resolve hardening. I need to face him, I'd said, and she'd sighed, knowing I wouldn't budge. Now, as we pulled up to my brownstone, Linda waited on the porch, her coat wrapped tight, her face etched with worry. Tasha texted, she said, rushing down, her hands cupping my face as I rolled out. What happened, Sam? Her voice trembled, and I saw the old pain in her eyes, the years she'd carried alone. He's in debt. Mafia, I said, my voice steady as I took her hand, squeezing it. Came begging, but I'm done, Mom. He's on his own. My chest ached, a mix of relief and sorrow, and she nodded, tears glinting but her smile proud. You're stronger than him, she said, her voice soft, fierce. Always were. We went inside, the warmth of home wrapping around me, Tasha crashing on the couch, her presence a comfort as we left the night behind. Days later, whispers reached me. Sam's company collapsed, Donnie's crew hunting him down, his pleas unheard. I saw a grainy photo online, him running, bruised, desperate, a man undone by his own greed. Me? Rise Again thrived, my millions funding families he'd never know, my life full with Mom, Tasha, a purpose he couldn't touch. He'd called me a burden once, but now he was the one sinking, and I felt free, satisfied, the weight of his shadow gone. But here's the thing. Rumors say Donnie's giving him one last shot, a deal to sell out someone else for his debt. Will he take it, dig deeper, or vanish? I don't know. I've learned family's what you build, not what you're born with, and loyalty beats blood every time. Sam's paying for his choices, and I'm living mine. What do you think? Should Sam fight or flee, or is his reckoning still coming? Drop your take below. I'm curious where you'd steer this mess.